Hello, BookTube. I'm hoping you all watched the wrap-up video that the guys at Strip Cover Lit did for their read-along to the Fellowship of the Ring. It was really good. I'll leave the link down below. And one of the things that came up in it, they are leaving the Fellowship behind. They are leaving Tolkien behind now. They left the door open for a possible future read of The Two Towers, but they're moving on to other books. And so this will be the last time that I'm sort of we're pushing off away from each other now because I'm going to keep reading, doing a read along with the rest of the Fellowship or the rest of Lord of the Rings to the end. Uh, but I wanted to mention one point that they made in that video that was full of great points, but one point that came up that I wanted to respond to, the last of their points I'll be able to respond to. Adrian Ford at one point wondered about the ring, the one ring that is at the center of the book, wondered what the big deal with it is. It's an interesting question. It's one that first time readers have often confronted me with. We see that the wise don't want to touch this thing, that they're afraid of it, but all that we actually see it do is make people invisible when they put it on and prolong the lives of hobbits. And that doesn't seem all that threatening. And I wanted to stress that that is because of Tolkien's mid-20th century conception of the ring as a doomsday weapon, which young people today don't really have that background radiation, constant anxiety. But once upon a time, we lived under threat of a doomsday weapon, and the whole point of a doomsday weapon is that you don't know what it will do until it changes everything. And that's the key to the One Ring. The reason that we don't see how dangerous it is because it gives, if its wielder is powerful enough, it gives that wielder the power of command over not just the hearts and wills of men, but over nature, the laws of nature themselves. We see a benign version of this, a little localized version of this with Tom Bombadil, who has the power of command himself. He doesn't need a trinket to give it to him. But the ring would give its wielder that over all of Middle-earth. So the only way that you would see the big deal about the ring would be if there was no more possibility of victory. If there was no more story. That's the whole point of the book, is to stop anyone from using it. And I thought we'd go on from where the guys left off. They have stopped with the Fellowship, and the Fellowship of the Ring, this one ring, this massively powerful thing, this evil thing, falls into the hands of a young hobbit named Frodo Baggins, and he goes to the elf city of Rivendell, and he's there joined by a Fellowship of the Ring, 9 walkers, who will join with him on a quest to walk the One Ring into the land of Mordor, into the stronghold of the Dark Lord Sauron, who made the ring, so that they can throw it into the fires of Mount Doom and destroy it, and thereby eliminate its evil from Middle-earth. The company is Frodo and his 3 hobbit friends, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, Gandalf the Wizard, Aragorn, the heir to the ancient kingdom of the West, Legolas, an elf, Gimli, the son of Glóin, one of the dwarfs that goes with Bilbo on his original adventures in The Hobbit, and Boromir, a proud warrior from the kingdom of Gondor in the south. And in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Fellowship almost immediately comes to grief. They are forced to travel underneath the mountains in the dwarf city of Moria, where they encounter not only hordes of orcs, but also a demon of the ancient world called a Balrog. And in combat with this Balrog, Gandalf falls into a chasm and is lost. And the company recovers and flees into the outside world, and eventually ends up in Lothlorien, another stronghold of the elves on Middle-earth, where they are counseled and tested and given gifts as parting tokens by the Lady Galadriel. And they're not far away from Lothlorien when, in the woods, Boromir takes Frodo aside and violently tries to take the ring from him. Frodo immediately sees the danger that he's been told about this thing, the compulsion that it can cause in people, is not theoretical, that it's real, and that he's a danger to everyone around him. He puts the ring on to vanish from Boromir's grasp, and he and Sam strike out for Mordor on their own. And that's where the book ends. And I thought today we would do, this is the Two Towers. This is the second book in the division of the one long narrative that is the Lord of the Rings. I thought we'd do the first 6 chapters in the Two Towers. And they also start off with grief. Because by the time Aragorn gets back to where Boromir is, something horrible has happened. It's not just that Sam and Frodo have disappeared, it's that Merry and Pippin have disappeared as well. They've been abducted by a band of orcs. And Boromir is dying. He lies wounded, surrounded by dead enemies when Aragorn finds him. And the last thing that Boromir tells him is, I have failed. I tried to take the ring from Frodo. And Aragorn tries to comfort him. He instantly dies. Gimli and Legolas show up. The three of them make a funeral boat for Boromir. They don't have time to create a grave of any kind, so they set him adrift on the river. And then they're faced with a horrible choice. Do we get in a boat and try and follow Sam and Frodo on their quest into Mordor, or do we chase after the orcs who kidnapped Merry and Pippin in an attempt to save their lives? And they make the only decision they can, really, which is to deal with the enemy they know and chase after Merry and Pippin, chase after the orcs in an attempt to catch up and save their friends. Of course, it's almost impossible from the start. They wasted many hours burying Boromir. And the orcs that they're chasing are pausing not at all, not by day nor night. So the chase their lead rapidly lengthens, especially since our heroes stop at night to rest. And when it all seems hopeless, they encounter a roving band of the warriors, the horsemen of the kingdom of Rohan, and led by a warrior named Éomer. And it's a tense meeting. The warriors of Rohan are not expecting to find anyone on the open plain, and they also have become suspicious of outsiders, what with the tension growing around the wars, with Saruman and Sauron. But they revealed to our heroes that they encountered that orc band and slew everyone. This seems just awful to Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, that they would come this far, strive this much, and then have their friends killed by accident. But it quickly becomes apparent that the riders of Rohan did not see any hobbits, and they accounted for all the dead. Something else happened. The tracks that Aragorn eventually finds don't make any sense to him. The hobbits had disappeared into woods, into the Fanghorn woods, and there their tracks vanish. So the narrative then splits, and we see that Merry and Pippin have encountered in the forest a gigantic creature called an Ent called Treebeard. Another race on Middle-earth, the oldest race on Middle-earth, the shepherds of the trees, these 10-foot tall, sort of walking tree-like creatures. Treebeard is totally benign, and he takes them into his protection. And when the narrative shifts back to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, they are wandering in the woods. They have been warned by Éomer and his men that a wizard stalks the woods, and of course it's Saruman. They're right on the doorstep of Isengard, Saruman's stronghold. So they assume that it's him when they see an old man wandering the woods right behind them, and they're ready to deal violence to the old man when they are paralyzed. And the old man turns out to be Gandalf. Beyond all hope, as Aragorn says, back from the dead. Gandalf has changed. He is white instead of gray. He's serene in an odd way. It's clear that he hasn't just survived an ordeal. He's been remade, reborn. And he's amused by the reactions of his friends. Gimli says, for instance, I thought for a minute that you were dangerous. and Gandalf says to him, I am dangerous. I'm more dangerous than anything you will ever meet, unless you are brought alive before the Dark Lord. But not dangerous, in a way that will hurt Gimli. And they question Gandalf about what's going on. They also question him about the Balrog, and he has a wonderful line. He talks about he fought with the creature. He says, we fought far under the living earth, where time is not counted. Ever he clutched me, and ever I hewed him, till at last he fled into dark tunnels. They were not made by Durin's folk, Gimli, son of Glóin. Far, far below the deepest delving of the dwarfs, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day. In that despair, my enemy was my only hope, and I pursued him, clutching at his heel. Thus he brought me back to the secret ways of Khazad-dûm. Too well he knew them all. Ever up we went now, up to the endless stair. They climbed from the very bottom of the earth to the very top of the earth, the hard horn of the world, as Gandalf refers to it. He defeats the Balrog, but is himself killed, essentially, and is brought back, as he puts it, until his task is done. And the three friends are happy beyond measure that they've met him again. He has brought horses, including Shadowfax, his great war horse, and they go to the chapter that ends our reading today is called "The King of the Golden Hall." They go to the hall of King Theoden of Rohan, and they find him enfeebled under the spell of the distant hand of Saruman at Orthanc, and under his cat's paw, Wormtongue, the king's advisor, who has been steadily sapping his strength over months, and attempts to do it even with Gandalf and Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli in the hall. Gandalf has to snap at him that I didn't pass through fire and death to bandy crooked words with a serving man while the lightning falls. And eventually Gandalf revives Theoden, brings him back to himself, and they take counsel. And that's where our reading for today ends. It ends with our friends with Theoden, and Theoden determined to go with them on a march, on a military expedition. So the book brings us at last, in these 6 chapters, to war on the grand scale. This is the epic side of the story that Tolkien wants to tell. And he hinted at it in the first book. It starts off very slowly, starts to reach grander matters, and then in these first 6 chapters, it's as grand as it gets. It's as epic as it gets. These are our heroes on the world stage of Middle-earth, fighting the war against Sauron. And the two quibbles that I wanted to bring up in this case, one of them is old, and it deals with the chapters of the Fellowship of the Ring after Gandalf has fallen in Khazad-dûm, after he's fallen in Moria. We encounter our heroes. They're outside of Moria. They're stunned. They go to Lothlorien. They talk about Gandalf having fallen into the chasm, but in retrospect, we can see clearly that they don't feel it. In retrospect, we can see clearly that Tolkien knew all along Gandalf wasn't dead and couldn't quite make his characters not know it. So in Lothlorien, they're actually joshing with each other. That would never happen. They're not grief-stricken. And there's a good reason for that, because the character is coming back. I kick myself that the very first time I read The Fellowship of the Ring, I didn't pick up on that. I should have. And the other quibble that I have is with Gandalf when he says, I have been sent back until my task is done. And he's been sent back not just healed from the wounds of fighting the Balrog, he's been sent back more powerful than he was before. Much more powerful. More powerful, he says, I am, in a way, Saruman, the White, the way he should have been. But that's not true either. He's much more powerful than Saruman was, even when Saruman was powerful. And that has always bugged me, because I want to know, obviously when he means sent back, he means by the Valar, by the gods of Tolkien's mythology, the creatures, the beings of light and energy that live across the ocean in the West, and from whom the wizards came in the first place. They're the ones who sent him back, and somehow told Galadriel, who sent an eagle to go and look for him, where he was on at the top of the endless stair. What I want to know is, these Valar, these beings from over the West, Are they in or out? Do they want Sauron defeated or don't they? If they do, and if they've always been capable of sending a more powerful wizard than they sent originally, then why didn't they do that? Why did Gandalf have to go through all this in order to gain more power to fight Sauron? And when they're sending him back until his task is done, why not send 4 other wizards with him? It's just, I don't understand their pussyfooting about defeating Sauron. Either they have the power to defeat him and want to, or they don't have the power to defeat him and want to. But they clearly do have the power to defeat him, because they can send somebody back with, we're told in these chapters, Gandalf says that at one point Sauron is close to seeing that the ring is entering his land, and in order to distract him, Gandalf goes to a high place and strives with the Eye of Mordor directly, 1-to-1. Something that absolutely Gandalf could not have done before, nor Saruman could have done before. That's always bugged me. That why are you giving salvation to Middle Earth piecemeal like this? But it's a small quibble compared to the greatness of these chapters. These are high fantasy at its best, and this is when you hear that Tolkien sets the template for much high fantasy to come. This is what people are talking about. These great mixtures of sorcery and military matters are what they're talking about. And we have more of those to talk about next time. So sorry again, as always with these videos, sorry for the length of the video, but when I'm talking about books I love, it's bound to happen. We'll get back to this next time. And thank you, Book 2.